by my own standards, today was what I'd call a pretty quiet day on the campaign trail. My first meeting wasn't until 8 a.m. and it was here in Dubbo, so I didn't have a long drive to get to my first meeting. And it was a good discussion I had with a particular business here, a business that employs a lot of people here in Dubbo, around payroll tax and the grants process. And I have talked about it before, and it's something I'm keen to change if I can get into state parliament, is payroll tax exemptions for regional business. Whether that means lifting the threshold, whether it means getting rid of payroll tax altogether, payroll tax seems to be a huge disincentive to employment. And we don't want that. We don't want that in particular in regional areas. We want people to be encouraged to employ people in regional areas. The particular business I spoke with today had some interesting ideas around deferral of payroll tax, and I'll have to look into that a bit further. But again, it's just that whole discussion around payroll tax. But it was also a discussion around the grants process. And I have had this discussion with other people, with farmers, with other businesses, with private individuals. And the grants process seems to be entirely cumbersome, overly cumbersome. And it makes it difficult for all the money that's promised in any program. The state government might come out with a budget announcement, with a grants program, and they make promises of millions of dollars, but they never actually hand out all of that money, or even sometimes any of that money, because it's so difficult to get a grant approved. And I really think we need to change that, and I've heard that feedback before the meeting I had this morning, but I think we need to change that without a doubt. I then went and did some poetry. I do some poetry, as most people that follow me know. I do some poetry for different organisations around Dubbo, some aged care facilities. So I went to Arana Gardens this morning and did some poetry, and of course did some Christmas poetry, because it was the last time I'll do that before Christmas. And it was good to see some of those residents who I've become friends with over the time, where I turn up each month and have a discussion about how they're going and do some poetry there. I then went off to Wellington, where there was a teacher at one of the Wellington high schools that was keen to have me talk to students around renewable energy, around some of the things that are happening with the climate change discussion that's going on with school students, with people across the land. And he was also keen for me to show the students my electric car, so they could see all the things they talk about, all the things they do in the classroom, all the theory, see that in a practical application. So that was quite interesting. It was great to see the kids really excited about looking at an electric car and just hearing the discussion around renewable energy. And Wellington certainly is a renewable energy hotspot at the moment, so it is exciting for people that live in Wellington. I then came back to Dubbo. We'd organised with a couple of my volunteers to go and do some door knocking. So we went and did some door knocking around Altringa Street, O'Donnell Street, just some of those areas around West Dubbo. And I've done a lot of door knocking by myself. I've knocked on a lot of doors in Dubbo, in Mudgee, in Wellington, in Narromine, in Trangie, a whole range of places. A lot of farms I've knocked on. And this is the first time I took out some of my volunteers. And so that was a different process today, but entirely enjoyable. And the feedback I continually get everywhere I go, the feedback I get is that people appreciate you taking the time to go and knock on the door and just have a discussion with them. I then ended up at the airport. I arranged for a meeting for a gentleman that was flying back to Sydney today. I was a government department official, but I wanted to have a talk to him about some of the drift, the spray drift that people are getting when they spray their crops with various chemicals. And 2,4-D was probably the main one we're talking about here. And that drift can have a major impact. Now, one of the things I love about what I'm doing at the moment is I'm learning so much. And I thought, yeah, you might get some drift that might go to the farm next door, to some neighbouring farms. But they've recorded some of that drift from things like 2,4-D up to 100 kilometres away. And I was amazed that that drift can go that far. And if you get the right climatic conditions, that can have a major impact. There are things that people can do. They can change their nozzles on their equipment. They can have their booms lower to the ground. They can spray by driving slower, which again sounds like it decreases productivity, which it would to a certain extent, but it looks after the neighbouring farms, or in fact farms across the entire region. So that was an interesting discussion, and there's some more work to be done there, I think, around education. So that finished off the day today. Again, I finished the day by about 6 o'clock today, came home, caught up on a few emails with some people that have been chasing me up for various meetings, but from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m, again, as I said before, that seems like a pretty quiet day on the campaign trail, and that's out in the field. There's all the work that you do in the office, of course, as well. Tomorrow will be quite interesting. I'm off to Wagga tomorrow. I've been speaking to Joe McGurr, who's the independent that was recently elected after the Wagga by-election, when Daryl Maguire, the former Liberal member down there, was caught basically for corruption, admitted to a corruption inquiry that he was doing, or undertaking corrupt behaviour. So he resigned. Joe McGurr was elected recently, and he's an independent there now. So you've got 3 independents in Parliament at the moment: Joe McGurr, Alex Greenwich and Greg Piper. And you've also got Phil Donato, who's a Shooters and Fishers Party member, but he's a single member, so he's about as close as you can get to being an independent, even though he is in a party, but a party of one. I think it's really important. There's a good chance that the Parliament next year will be a hung Parliament. And if I can manage to become the member for this electorate, then being in a hung Parliament means that you've got some discussion to have with those other people that are independents, for example, other people like Phil Donato that hopefully will be re-elected as the Shooters member for Orange. And you need to have those relationships with those people, because it will be up to the discussion amongst those independents, those minor party players, to work out what's going to be delivered for the various electorates that those people are in, and who's going to be able to help someone form government, whether that be the coalition or whether that be the ALP. Someone will be able to form government, but they'll need the help of those members. So I've had some discussion with Joe McGurr over the phone. I thought it was worthwhile to go and actually sit down with Joe and have some face-to-face time. So I'm going to Wagga tomorrow to have that. When I first announced my candidacy, I actually rang Greg Piper. I've dealt with Greg a little bit. Greg's the longest serving independent member in State Parliament at the moment. So I actually contacted Greg, had some discussions with him, but I'll catch up with Greg in person before the election as well. And Alex Greenwich, I don't know Alex, so I will talk to Alex before the election and actually go down and sit down with Alex and have a discussion. And Phil Donato, I have been having some discussions with Phil. I've had several discussions with him over the last 5 or 6 months. I think it's important to form those relationships, build those, so that if I am successful, I've already got some relationship built with those members that will be the ones responsible for forming government. Thanks to all those people that have given me their time today. Thanks to my volunteers who came along and helped me out today. And I look forward to a discussion with Joe tomorrow and talking to more people around the electorate tomorrow. This has been Mathew Dickerson, your independent voice.